I wish we were gathering for a different reason. We've had a lot of great things happen at Iowa State over the last few months, and it's been fun to stand in front of you and talk about them and praise you for your accomplishments. But today I'm here really to express my extreme disappointment, sadness over the campus town incident earlier this morning. Frankly embarrassed for our university and our community. I feel especially sorry for those students who worked so hard over the last year to plan and carry out a fun, positive, successful VEISHEA celebration on behalf of this great university. I want you to keep in your thoughts and prayers our student who suffered a serious injury last night or early this morning as a result of what happened in Campus Town. Our Dean of Students, who's here with me right now, and her entire team are providing support to this young man and his family. We can report that the student remains in ICU in Des Moines. He is stable and conscious. The doctors continue to monitor his condition very closely. We're hoping for a recovery, full recovery. I also want to take a moment to thank members of the Ames and ISU police departments, Ames Fire Department, Mary Greeley Medical Center paramedics for their caring and professional response to the incident. I want you to pay attention to this part very carefully. A safe environment is mine and my senior staff's #1 priority. And unfortunately, the true purpose of VEISHEA has been overshadowed by too many acts of this nature, which jeopardizes the safety of our students and really the entire Ames community. We're making every effort right now to identify those individuals responsible for this morning's problem. This type of conduct is not going to be tolerated by me or the university. Any student who was involved in this campus town incident may face criminal charges as well as student disciplinary action, which could lead to expulsion from this university. So you need to understand the seriousness of this matter. I met with my cabinet this morning. I met with student leadership this morning. I had conversations with the mayor. I had a long conversation with President Emeritus Greg Joffrey, and all this was about a thorough discussion of VEISHEA, past and present. The consensus of the group was perfectly clear. Human safety, safety of our community here has to be our #1 priority, and we cannot have any more property destroyed or any incidents of this nature. So that being said, that being under consideration, and after much thought, it's with mixed feelings and a heavy heart that I decided to suspend the remainder of this VEISHEA starting at 5 o'clock tonight, so it's done. This includes the parade, concerts, food vendors, VEISHEA Village, other campus activities, and entertainment. Now, there's a question banked here, and to address the larger question of future VEISHEA celebrations, I will very soon, this week, appoint a task force to assess the role and relevance of VEISHEA. The task force has to consider not only the university's cherished 92-year tradition, but also the very real black eye that results from a history of ugly incidents surrounding the otherwise wonderful event. My predecessors have faced similar difficult decisions, and despite everyone's best efforts to fix VEISHEA, move it, retool it, reschedule it, change it, keep it fresh, once again, we're back here doing the same thing President Joffrey and President Jischke did. We're going to work quickly on this. You'll be hearing from me soon. I anticipate receiving the task force recommendations and making a decision by the end of the academic year. So this will not be a prolonged process or decision. For now, I am willing to take questions. We'll start with the media. And will we what? We generally protect student identities in incidents like this. Pamela, do you want to comment?
We are in contact with the student's family, and at this time they have asked that we not release his name.
Yes, we've had a number of discussions with our campus safety officers. We've had discussions with the mayor and our police department, and Chief Sykosh have had discussions. Chief, do you want to comment? And while he's coming up here, I also want to say that there have been a lot of resources sent by faculty, staff, students, and many others in preparation for the VEISHEA. Working with the VEISHEA Executive Committee and the Office of Senior Vice President of Student Affairs, Tom Hill's office, and Senior Vice President Warren Madden, we will work to recover lost costs through alternative resources. We're going to take care of those issues. But let's let the Chief address that question on safety and security.
Thank you for asking that, Trent. I might just, by way of background, remind you that we work every year with students and staff in the larger community to try to create a successful event, and in fact, a successful academic year for the people who enjoy this community. And we did see some of that last night. We had some very disturbing and disappointing things happen, but we also had some great help from members of this community, maybe from people in this audience. You helped us send people home. You helped us calm the crowd. You helped us all recognize the seriousness of this injury and put this event in perspective and keep it from getting worse. And of course, we're preparing for the rest of the week, but I think it's very important when we take the perspective of preparing as a community. We need your help to overcome this image that we've created of ourselves from last night. Put a better face on our community and put a better face on this event going forward. So we will prepare, but we also need your help to set a healthier tone for the rest of the week. At this point, we have made 2 arrests. We are getting tremendous help from the community in identifying people who may have been involved in vandalism, in the car tipping, and in particular, we're very interested in finding the people who may have been involved in the incidents that led to this injury. And I need to tell you right now, we appreciate the help we're getting from the community and moving forward on that, and that will help us to file charges in those incidents where they're appropriate.
Chief, have you gotten pictures, videos, been able to look online in regards to YouTube videos from the event last night?
We are getting a tremendous amount of information. And again, that's so helpful to us. And I want to reemphasize that there were 2 faces to this event. And there were some people doing some very dangerous things and some very disappointing things. But there are other folks out there who recognize that and recognize that that's not a part of the character of this community and are standing up to make that clear. We're receiving emails and cards and messages to that effect, and we're receiving information from people who may have some insight into what occurred. Pardon me? We are gathering some information about the damage, and we'll get a better assessment of that as the day progresses. I think the focus here is on a student who was very seriously injured in an incident that shouldn't have happened. So we can repair the light poles, and we'll put up new signs. That'll happen. But we have a student who's very seriously injured, and our hearts go out to him and his family and his roommates. We saw in their faces last night the pain and the fear from what happened, and I think that touched us all. Yeah, we did have to put together a team to go in and extricate him from that situation. And again, this is a large crowd. It's crowd behavior. That's not unusual. At the same time, there are a number of people trying to help us get there and trying to make sure we understood that he was injured and needed that attention. That team went in. They got him out very quickly. We were able to transition from that team that had fire and police officers to extricate him from that area into the ambulance. We have a great team in this community providing that emergency care. Made a smooth transition to the air ambulance, and we're all hoping for the best. I don't think so. And again, my detailed information on that's pretty limited, but he was unconscious in the street, I believe, and and they needed to stabilize him before they removed him. That was part of the challenge of getting enough space in there to work and getting that team in there to work. So.
Of course, Hillary, as president of the student body, I would like to suggest two former VEISHEA members. I won't name their names. They one served when we had this problem before, and one served immediately after VEISHEA was reconstituted. Of course, people from Pamela and Tom's offices will be on it. There'll be representation from the city. We'll try and get a broad set of perspectives. This will not be a committee that is 100% for continuing VEISHEA, nor 100% for discontinuing it. We're going to try and get diverse opinions at the table and have a real discussion about what should happen to VEISHEA going forward. The fact that this has happened before is a problem.
Can you talk about the conversation between yourself and President Gilbert?
Sure. I don't call Greg very often. He worked hard when he was here. He did a great job, and I try not to bother him in retirement. And similarly, he's very respectful not to micromanage me. But there are some times when two presidents need to talk, and this was one of them. Greg has walked in this exact same path that I'm walking in right now with similar incidents, similar issues, similar philosophical struggles between a great student-run festival and huge problems where we have a history of student injuries or deaths. So Greg offered some counsel, perspective on how he would do it if he was doing it again, how he thought I should do it, and I appreciate his counsel tremendously. Yes, that I'm extremely saddened to be up here doing what I'm doing now. I have a mixed mind, a heavy heart over this. There are a lot of students, some are standing right here behind me, have worked hard for a long time. And we pride ourselves at Iowa State in giving students leadership and experiential learning opportunities, and that's exactly what they've done here. And they put in tremendous effort, and it's through no fault of their own that we're at here where we're at today. So I'm saddened for the members of the community, the families and children that wanted to come to the parade, all these things. But I go back to the earlier point about the safety of our students, the safety of our community, and I will tell you this, that since I've been president, I have found that when we put a lot of smart people around the table and thoroughly discuss things, we don't make that many mistakes. We took everybody this morning around that table, and my chief of staff and I spoke last. And we had a very deliberate, thoughtful discussion from a number of perspectives and came to this conclusion. So we didn't take the decision lightly. We factored in all these things and we are where we are, but there's not a single person at that table that isn't disappointed with where we're at right now.
Can you talk about the conversation? Were there people at that table who were in favor of continuing the celebration?
There was very little support for continuing VEISHEA this week. There's more support and more discussion needs to be had about the future of VEISHEA. But it's Tuesday, folks, and we used to blame some of these issues on people that came to Ames from out of town and caused these problems. It's never us. Well, this time it was us. And I think that led to part of the discussion that we can't let this go the rest of the week. Because I'll tell you the truth, I was standing in my office very sad about this whole decision after we made it, and I was looking across Central Campus at Curtis, and I saw 300 or 400 well-behaved students waiting in line for lunch, and I thought, I can't do that. So I picked a time, and most of our problems, quite frankly, are when it gets dark. And so we drew a line in the sand, and I do it at 5 o'clock. Yes? Well, you have to realize that by and large the students don't email like they use other aspects of communication and social media. So if you divide this up, as of about lunchtime I had about 100 strong emails that this has gone on too long. I'm putting my Iowa State cap in the closet. It's not coming out for a long time, and VEISHEA needs to be done once and for all. Do the right thing. There was one from one undergraduate that told me I should not cancel VEISHEA, counsel the students so that nothing else will happen the rest of this week. But if you look more broadly at something like Facebook, it's a more balanced set of opinions, quite frankly.
From the city's perspective, Chief Sykosh, I know we have Hamilton.
Mhm.
What did you hear from community members, people in the city of Ames, in regards to what thoughts did they have in regards to?
Some of the emails I got were from community members, and with one exception, they were all strongly in favor of shutting this down. One person asked that we use restraint, but I think the mayor is much closer to that.
Well, again, we haven't had a lot of time for reaction. However, I think it's fair to say that as a community, everybody that we've heard from is very sad, but does appreciate that safety needs to be the first consideration, and that is an overriding issue. That being said, those of us who've lived in this community for a long time and participated in VEISHEA for a long time and have had numbers of guests with young families, old families coming from out of town, it is a comment and a concern not only for those of us who are community members, but I think for the state as a whole. So I can't say anything but just extreme sadness, but nonetheless recognition that safety is our first concern.
Of course we're worried. The reality is we have a task force that's going to be formed right away to look at the future of VEISHEA. We have, despite what happened last night, a group of incredibly bright students on this campus. They can add 2 and 2. We don't need another incident this weekend, and that task force won't meet very long. Well, I don't know yet, but I will tell you this. The likelihood of VEISHEA in something in its present form continuing is very, very small. So it'll either be a total reconstitution and a refocus on what VEISHEA used to be, or it won't be. We're not going to add to these student injuries, student deaths, student incidents going forward. Well, that is an appropriate question, but unfortunately I can't answer it very well because I don't have any trouble making decisions, and I usually make them fairly quickly, but I usually make them with input. And until this group gets together at the table and we get student perspectives, former VEISHEA chairs, alumni perspectives, staff, the city, it would be irresponsible for me to decide what VEISHEA is going to be like in the future without all that input. Look at the number of people in this room who obviously have a deep interest in the future of VEISHEA. I need that input before I make a decision, so I don't know the exact answer, but the problems revolving around alcohol and the late night activities, the house parties that end up in these kind of issues have to go away. So whatever the solution is, we've got to be pretty darn comfortable that we've got to that point.
President Leath and I were speaking this morning of the fact that our frameworks, our history, are different. My history does include having been involved, I believe, in all of the aftermath of VEISHEAs that have caused us concern, and I can simply say from that each time there has been a sadness and a look at what can be done to take the bad out of VEISHEA and embrace what has historically been good. We've changed some city ordinances. The university has made adaptations in terms of the kind of entertainment that has been made. But as you can see, we're back here again. So the magic bullet, I think, just from my experience in personal history on several of these VEISHEA committees has not been foolproof.
Sure. Introduce yourself too.
Excuse my voice a little down. My name is Nick Morton. I'm one of the general co-chairs of VEISHEA 2014. I think the biggest thing for us goes out to our executive team. all the communities that have been involved in this. This has been a year-long process. We start the Sunday after VEISHEA 2013. We continue for the entire summer into the school year. There's a lot of people in this room right now that are probably thinking a lot of things right now because this is a big change for us. The week for us really hasn't even started. We are still got quite a few events that would have been left out for the rest of the week. So I think that my thoughts go out to my executive team and also the student that was injured as well. But I think right now it's really much more of an internal thing for us to be able to handle what's going on emotionally and also what's going on for our university. Because at the end of the day, VEISHEA is here for Iowa State University. VEISHEA is here for all the students in the room right now, all the faculty, all the staff, everyone. And that's, I think, the important thing to remember.
Because you closed some down last night. No, I didn't. Well, somebody did.
I don't know the answer to that. Do you?
Could you repeat the question so I'm sure I understand? Oh yeah, good question. Well, we really had great cooperation from the business owners, the bar owners. We have a bar hotline, a method of communicating with them. And so early on in this process, we asked them to, depending on their location, either have some people shelter in place, or in some cases they chose to close and clear out their bar. We have some rental properties, some apartment complexes in the area that employ security. Those security officers communicate with us regularly and actually assisted. They were part of the group that helped us gain access to this injured student in the crowd. And they were pretty successful in protecting the properties that they serve. And so we have good cooperation out of that residence rental property environment. And then there are some retail enterprises up there that have a good working relationship with us, recognize when things are sort of scaling up, and their contribution many times is to either temporarily or for the rest of the night close down their business operations so they don't become a gathering point or a flash point for something more. And those folks jumped in right away, were part of this process, recognized what was scaling up, and really we had great and really remarkably smooth cooperation in that Welch Avenue environment from those business owners.
Any other questions?
The question had to do with concerns about the national media coverage and how that might affect our donations and other things. I think it's more dependent on how we handle the situation than what happened last night in terms of how people will judge us. It's certainly disappointing that with all the great publicity we've received lately about the way we manage our university efficiently, how we've been hiring more faculty, the successes of our students, the successes of our student athletes, that now we layer on top of that this really unfortunate story. So we need to work hard to recover from that and put the good of Iowa State in the front again. But I'm confident our loyal supporters, our alums, will judge us more on how we handle it than what happened last night.
Any other questions?
You mean going too far in canceling the rest of the activities? Well, whether the news media took it too far nationally or not is a moot point. That's the world we live in. News is immediate now, and it's easy to distribute. So it's unrealistic to think it'll be otherwise. Some of your stuff is being tweeted as we're up here. So in that sense, now whether we overreacted or did too much, I would say a couple of things. One, we were thoughtful on this, and we relived history. And these folks behind me, many of them have relived this twice. None of those students have relived this. Some of these students were hardly born at the first time we had these problems in VEISHEA. Also, the buck stops here. I'm the one that's responsible for the safety and welfare here, not the individual students. And it's unfortunate because probably 33,000 of our students are great, but there were a percentage that weren't last night. And to those students that really worry if we overreacted, go in your room, close the door, and sit thoughtfully and watch those videos. They're really disappointing.